you too. Thank you so much for accommodating the extra hour.
No problem. You have that nice Florida glow to you, that nice tan. I'm so jealous. You look wonderful. Just so.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we were very blessed to have a really beautiful spring. So we got a lot of beach walks in. I live right across the street from the ocean. So it's kind of like my daily meditation to get out there and walk around.
Oh, I can just imagine how healing that is. I mean, where in Florida are you?
I'm in a little beach town called Pompano. It's about an hour north of Miami.
Okay. I have family that live in the Tampa area, and I keep meaning to go visit because of
Mhm.
this past year and a half. I haven't really done any traveling, but I mean, you look gorgeous. Your nice glowing skin.
Oh,
You're
thanks.
so vibrant. I love it. So thank you so much, Suzanne Gundersen. Thank you for joining me on So Zoom In. It's my YouTube channel where I like to zoom in on people who are in the creative flow, and you do so much. I was looking you up, and you help creatives,
I
but
do.
you help people become mindful of who they are, to find
Yeah,
their truth, and to be in their own, what I like to say, in their own creative flow. And
exactly.
and I just had to talk with you. So thank you so much for being on my show.
Oh, fantastic. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, thank you. I have to ask, you do tapping, and
I
that's something,
do.
I think it's so simple, and I think more people need to become aware of it. How
Mhm.
did you become involved in tapping, and how do you practice it yourself?
It's a great question. My story was I grew up with a lot of chronic anxiety, and I was on a lot of medication. I was an emotional overeater to kind of cope with all that anxiety. I never liked how I was living, and I really was just kind of on a quest to go and find something that was going to work for me. So I found some incredible tools like hypnosis, and neuro-linguistic programming, and neuroscience, and energy methods, and then tapping. And that was incredible. That just kind of blew me away. I was reading a book by a hypnotherapist who also used neurolinguistic programming, and he said, "Oh, well, if you have anxiety, you could just tap under your eye." And I was like, "What? Seriously? What are you talking about?" So this goes back to like 2003, 2004. So there wasn't a big internet like there is today. There wasn't a lot of people that were doing this kind of stuff. There wasn't a big, vibrant YouTube channel, like there is today. So I really was just like, I have to find out about this. And as soon as I did and I started to use it, I didn't know what I was doing. I was tapping all over the place, but it was giving me some relief enough that I started to see some shifts in my life, from having kind of less panic attacks, less, ice cream in my life, more being fit and in shape. And that was like really, really good for me.
Well, it seems like right now there's anxiety everywhere you turn. I mean, anxiety seems to be like this blanket just hanging in the air. And I think, and not going into the whole what and why, but you just feel it. And how, what can people do to just kind of like alleviate some of that anxiety just by tapping? Is that
Yeah.
something you do simply, or?
Well, yes and no. First of all, we are living in such transformative times where we are awakening to sensation in our body like none other. We've never felt so much in our lives. We literally have been just kind of like bear down and just going through life at like this trajectory of momentum that just had our bodies just be bracing down and waiting for the stress of the day. And so we need, now that we're waking up to all this sensation, we need to be able to kind of find tools to regulate ourselves and be able to stay balanced, so we're not so wobbly through life and then going off into our unhealthy coping strategies, or being stuck into cycles of fight, flight, or freeze, which a lot of people kind of joke about, like, "Oh, I'm in fight flight." I'm like, it's really not funny. So we really need tools and skills now. So tapping, certainly, it's a self-use acupressure technique where you use your fingertips to tap on energy points. And when you do that, you're shifting how you feel and experience your body, your emotions, and your mind. And so very simply, if you're in the moment of stress and you're overwhelmed and you need help to kind of regulate your body and your emotions and even some thinking, you can just tap on these points and simply say, let it go, let it go, let it go. You do a couple of rounds of that, until frankly, you start to kind of get more peaceful in your body. And that peace starts to kind of regulate more of that limbic system in your brain, that emotional fire alarm in your brain. And then things start to calm down. So that's one really simple way to use it without even knowing what you're doing. You can just stress. Oh my gosh, stress, 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 stress. Let it go, let it go. But then if you really want to use tapping as kind of a trauma transformational technique, well, that takes a little bit more skill and a little bit more of a method behind it. And so I've been tapping for almost, 18 years now. And so I've tried a lot of different flavors of it. There are a lot of different brands of it out there. It uses one energy system, but I kind of have my own way of approaching it. I call it my 3RP method. It stands for resolve, release, reframe, and project. So you're really going through kind of a sequence of stages to really help you let go of that thing that might be bigger than just the in the moment stress. So tapping, great for in the moment stress, but then also can be used as a kind of overall trauma transformation.
Well, what I like about it is that you become mindful that something is going on. And just that fact of being mindful that something's off and you're willing to do something about it is kind of pretty awesome. Just because I think so many people aren't, well, I think more people are now paying attention to what's going on. Now you have a website that you offer services for called Transformed
Connections.
I want to say transformative, but transformed connections. And you do offer services online, right? You don't have to be face to face, which is kind of sad, right?
Pre-COVID, it was all face to face, and then through COVID, it just translated to be all online. And I think that was the safest way for people still to get connection. I mean, we are mammals. Survival is social engagement is our most modern survival strategy. So we need connection. And now some people still feel that's even more efficient to be able to do things online, that way they don't have to kind of drive anywhere. I mean, I still see some people that are just finally coming out and wanting to be face to face, but my clients are all over the world. So, I mean, I had a client just before you was in Bali. So, I mean, they're all over the place.
That's kind of exciting, though, to really be able to reach out to someone across the world, or in our case, across the country. And it really expands that consciousness, of this shared energy that we're all experiencing. So I really feel like we're all coming to a place where we are becoming more mindful, more conscious. And it goes back to what was our trauma. I mean, I think we all have childhood trauma of some sort.
Oh, yeah. I mean, 5 years ago, I've been doing this trauma healing work for 15 years, and I would talk to people and tell them what it is that I do, and they would be, oh, well, I don't have trauma. That's not me. That's not me. And now in the last 5 years, everyone's like, yes, that's me. I have trauma. I need help. So I think everyone's just kind of embracing it, that there's little t trauma, there's big T trauma, there's trauma that lives in your life as behaviorals, attachment styles, survival strategies, personalities, and all of that can be transformed. We don't have to be stuck into a life sentence of whatever those patterns were that got established back when the trauma set in. So we can kind of wiggle and loosen that free and start to process it through the body. And then we don't have to be living in that trauma anymore. So I'm very proud of anybody who wants to stand up now and say, yes, I have this trauma, little t, big T trauma, and I need help kind of moving it through me.
Well, I think it's interesting too, because it's not necessarily just our stuff. It's like stuff we get from our parents who got from their parents. I mean, it's this whole generational thing that a lot of times people don't realize what it is, but they feel that something. And so I think as we come into mindfulness, we realize. And so you offer tools to help people, I like to say, be in the flow.
That's how I call it, really helping you get into your rhythm and flow. I help people to empower people to transform their stress, reconnect with their bodies and their lives, and get into their natural rhythm and flow.
It sounds so easy. It sounds so easy, but it's not. I mean,
there can be some tricky moments for sure. And this is not a journey for the faint of heart. You need to be willing and persistent. And you need to be, once you open up Pandora's box, be willing just to keep growing. I call it growing, but I spell it like capital G, lowercase r, capital O, lowercase w, capital ing, so that the word going is capitalized and the growing is in the word. So just keep growing, but really meaning just keep going. Don't stop.
I love that. Well, because it is this constant cycle, of experiences and how you deal with them. So would you say that as people start learning to, one, not only become aware of their trauma, but to learn to heal that trauma, are they then more apt to deal with situations that come up so they don't inflict that same kind of trauma?
Oh, 100%. Each of us has a unique window of stress tolerance. You might call that your bounce back ability, your resilience level. Some people, they get a paper cut, it takes them out of work for the day. Other people, they rub a Band-Aid around it and they just keep going, right? So what determines your level of resilience really comes from your real early developmental years, when you were kind of shaped into, did you have an opportunity to share safe connection with the closest people around you consistently enough where you felt you could go out there on a limb a little bit and risk a little bit as a little kid, and know that you still had a safe place to come back to. If you didn't, even if you did, but you didn't feel safe in it, you had a very short window of tolerance. And people grow up, and I call them kind of those people that kind of live hard and fast. They're kind of like gripping onto the edge of the pool, like, I got this. Yeah, no problem, no problem. But they're not really having the resilience of someone who maybe can be floating in the middle of the pool and go, oh, it's raining, I got to go underwater. Oh, it's time for me to swim fast, and how to swim back and forth from the edge to the edge. So we have this unique window of stress tolerance that we establish when we're young, based on our sensitivity level, based on the nurturing around us. There's a lot of different factors that go into that. But we can develop resilience as we get older. And that's really learning how to trust ourselves, learning how to regulate our physical body first, help regulate our nervous system, and then our emotions, and then our mind, to be able to stay more present in the face of stress. That way we don't check out. That way we don't reach for our cookies, our wine, our sugar, our drugs, or whatever it is that we use to cope. And really, having resilience means to be able to stay present with your experience of stress and not get overwhelmed. And we don't have a lot of real tolerance. This is why everyone's kind of like waking up to, oh my gosh, I've got so much stress and tension and trauma living in my body. I need help.
Well, I'm glad people are finally becoming aware of that. And if anything, this thing of being on quote lockdown for over a year now is really making people realize that, or at least I hope, that something, it goes within too. If you want to change the world, you have to change yourself first. You have to figure out what's going on with you.
And if you want to change, you have to change first too. It's not that you can't wait for the world and the circumstances around you to change. You really just have to kind of be like that peace and center with a big amount of resilience, be able to handle all the chaos around us, because life as we know it is dismantling around us. Every day we go, that group, that organization, that institution, that culture, that religion, that thing that we believed in, that we subscribe to, is that? Oh, that's not who I want to be. And so those things that we used to find secure attachment through just aren't there for us anymore. And so we're really having an opportunity to come into our own instead of going, well, what's the next thing I can grab onto? Well, really nothing is very stable right now. And everything's kind of wobbly. And so we're the only and the best place to go to is within ourselves. And people just don't know how to trust themselves because they don't, and they don't have much resilience. And so I share with them how to kind of awaken that part of their body to experience that stress so that they can release it through, and then be able to build their own stress resilience and their own tolerance for stress physically first. Because how many times have you been able to say, oh, I feel my earlobes right now, or I can feel, the tops of my ankles. Like, we just don't focus in on our body parts because we're so disconnected. Even though we're kind of walking in our body, we're really not in our body very well. So I help them kind of get comfortable. Oh, this is my body. Oh, welcome to your body. Here we are. Am I okay with these sensations waking up? Then helping the body do its own natural, stress mechanisms, stress release mechanisms, which feel a little different or look a little different, not normal to us. And then use them, to be able to help us, throughout life to continue to rationalize the backlog of stress and trauma that we have, and then still have a tool to go forward. The example for like tapping. Mm-hmm.
That sounds so exciting to me, because it's really giving a person an opportunity to know themselves. And you're right, because we get so caught up in what the TV says or ads say, and it's like you need lip implants or you need a butt implant, or and And it sounds like this is giving you an opportunity to really say, this is who I am. What is this on my body? How, it's all, and you're right, it's all being in alignment. How long does someone usually, when they embark this adventure of figuring out who they are and say they go to you, is it something that, is going to be a lifetime, or is it something that they can get a handle on in a short period of time? Or how does it generally work?
It really depends on the individual and how gripped they are onto the edge of the pool. How willing are they just to kind of maybe let one hand free, both hands free, practice how to swim. I mean, it takes practice to be well. And it's certainly not something that I can give to you. I can show you how to get there, and I can be your support, and I can remind you of what you need to do, and I can help you through your own sensation awakening to go, oh, that's normal. That's totally normal. That's fine. And be an empathetic witness to you. So some people, I mean, if you're tapping in the moment of stress, you can get immediate relief right then and there and start to calm your body down. But that stress is going to come back again and again and again, unless you go to the root of it, where it lives in your body, and help it kind of just wake up and move through. Every body is different. When I work with people, I work with people in, 30-day, blocks. And after 3 months, if we've done 3 30-day, segments together, I say, you have everything that I know. You know what you need to do. You really need to just kind of like leave the nest now and go off and be on your own. And I know that's a lot different, because most people are just used to, I've had my therapist for 10 years. I'm like, well, I'm not your therapist. I'm not trying to replace them. I'm really trying to help you learn how to self-regulate. So I will be that co-regulation experience initially to show you the way, which is what you should have learned a long, 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 long time ago, but didn't. So I'll share that with you now. But then after 3 months, we're really done. Some people are done after 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And they go, hey, I got this. Thank you so much. I know what I need to do now. I'm going to go do it. And other people need a little bit more of that co-regulation, hand-holding, empathetic witness to unraveling their trauma. I mean, trauma gets set into the body because we didn't have an empathetic witness at the time of that we experienced stress. And so we kind of looked around and said, oh no, what do I do with this? And we buried into the body. And so as it starts to come out, it says, well, who's going to be there for me? So I will be that person for them as it kind of safely unwinds through their body and then moves through. But so there is kind of a beginning, a middle, and an end to the work that I do with my clients. Like I said, typically it's, 3 weeks to 4 weeks, and we can repeat that up to 3 months. But after 3 months, really, it just becomes more that they need to do this, they need to continue on their own. And down the road, a few months later, if they're having another kind of what I call speed bump through life, they hit a speed bump, they go, oops, I need some help. Then they can come back for another round. So yeah, it's not one size fits all. Trauma healing is not one size fits all. Like I said, one person's paper cut is a Band-Aid, the other one is the day off of work.
And it really doesn't matter what type of career you do. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of artists, visual artists, screenwriters, filmmakers, actors, and they're in that creative flow. And I know as writers, I myself am a writer, sometimes you get in that block, and and sometimes you hit something that really hits a core, like a core nerve, something that maybe has never been addressed before, or maybe something you just gonna pass over. But I think in this time when we're really becoming mindful of everything going on around us, as a writer or creative, and you hit that core, would something like what you offer be helpful to kind of help figure out what that is to help the creative process?
Absolutely. In fact, I've been working in stress management, natural stress management for 15 years, largely helping people with addiction, behavioral issues, mental health, anxiety, all the things that affected me, divorce recovery, empathic overload, all these things. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I was approached by an author who said, I have writer's block. Can you help me with that? And I said, well, to me, it was just another form of resistance in the body, a weak resilience level, an inability to go emotionally deep and carry themselves in that moment. And so I helped her through her writer's block. She led me to another author who then led me to a showrunner who said, hey, I've got, mid-season, I've got chaos in my writer's room. Can you help them with their writer's block? And to me, sure, it's like no big deal. I went in there and I just said, hey, you're in resistance of being in this flow because of why? Well, one person was getting divorced. The other one's mother had just got diagnosed with Alzheimer's. The other one's, child had just got, diagnosed with autism. They were really stressed out. So I kind of worked individually with each of them. And then I worked together with them kind of as a team to come back together into their creative flow together. That way they could finish the season. And that's kind of how was born my business that I call Screen Right Now, which I offer a program called Just Right Now, which is really helping writers get over, have like kind of the ultimate screenwriter's writer's block solution, to use tapping and some other tools to help them get into that creative flow.
Well, that's exciting because I do a lot of writers too. They'll start a project, then they won't finish it.
Well, why? Because by the time you roll up your sleeves and you get into the mucky muck of the emotions of character development, well, that is you. And if you haven't done your own work and you can't carry yourself to that emotional depth that you're really envisioning the story to be, deeply connected at, you need to do that work. And that's what I do with people. It's just another form of kind of helping them process. That way they can get to writing. And I'll tell you, I could give you a dozen writers, maybe even some who are watching this now, that say, yes, that's the work I've done with Suzanne before, where I go to, the top 1, 2, or 3 unresolved memories that they have from their past. And we go and process them. And always it has whatever comes up when they say, hey, I've got this, I can't write. I've got this kind of slump. I came up with 100 ideas and I just can't get past 10 pages, or I can't get past Act 2, or whatever it might be. I say, great, tell me about one of the top 1 or 2 unresolved issues in your life. Okay, it was a divorce. Oh, it was humiliation in the 4th grade, or I peed my pants, or I don't know, whatever it might be. Whatever these issues are, we start to go back to them when we use tapping, and we use my 3RP method with tapping, and we use some other somatic release techniques, and we loosen the body from gripping on to that stress and holding that moment in time, helping it process through. Then after an hour, they're just like, okay, I gotta go. I gotta write now. I'll see you later. Bye-bye. So I've been doing that with screenwriters now for a few years, and other kind of industry creatives as well, but mostly writers, because they're very near and dear to me, because I feel like for so long, my story wasn't valuable to anybody, not even me. And to tell their own story through the scripts that they write is just such an important work. So I really help them be able to become more authentic, embodied in their own emotional capacity, to be able to write from places of peace and wisdom, even about things that are flaws, wounds, hurt, pain, anxiety, fear, whatever it might be, but they write from a place of safety and peace and wisdom, as opposed to being down there in the trenches with it, which is why they don't want to go there and they get stuck in their writing.
Wow, I really like that. So to be able to observe it as opposed to be in it, but still have that experience of it.
Yes.
Yeah, if they want to reach out to you regarding that, would they reach out to you on your website?
Yes, screenrightnow.com, and I have a free video consult to chat about whatever it is that you've got as a block. I'll give you a little mini experience of how I do things, and we can get things started fairly quickly. And I work with, I have a couple of different kinds of packages. Depends on what it is they're trying to write. If they're like mid-season of a show and they're going to have to write a few episodes, then, we might need to work together for a few months, and I can kind of be available to them whenever they need, and scheduling time to kind of help them get through any blocks. Maybe if they're just writing a TV pilot and, they have like 30 days to do it or something, they're giving themselves a deadline, then maybe we only need to do, 2 weeks worth of work, or maybe just a handful, or two sessions or 3 sessions or something like that, to really kind of get them cleared up and going. So it depends on what the project is in terms of how long we would work together. But it is all private, one-on-one work, just like this, because it is therapy without being therapy.
Well, it's, getting, removing the blocks through your own self. It sounds like you helping them access what's going on.
Yeah, first I explained to them that, stress squeezes in the body. right? We always just kind of feel like it's all around us. We don't have any space. This is why we get into a panic and we go through that, experience of anxiety or anger. And if we can't resolve it, then we kind of get into the hopelessness and despair of it all. And we can get stuck wobbling between despair and anger or anxiety. And then we just never really resolve it back to a place of peace and wisdom. So I really help them to take that contraction, that natural contraction, and open it up physically. There's a few very simple somatic meaning body exercises that you can do to kind of release that contraction. And then once that contraction is released, well, whatever was buried in there starts to bubble up, an emotion, a story. And that's where the tapping is brilliant, because we can start to use the tapping to process that through until it just doesn't trigger that limbic emotional system in our brain any longer, and we can start to reprogram the brain to go into directions of new neural pathways of more peace and wisdom about whatever happened.
I like this. I wish you could be teaching our current government system. All these politicians need to know this. It just seems like so many people are so stressed out, and it just seems like there's, they are so tight in their body. And I know I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was so anxiety ridden, and she was just like, oh, I could handle this. And she just wanted to keep piling more anxiety on. And I'm like, okay, why don't you take care of yourself and go do something to take care of you? But so many people are in denial still. So how do you
I can share a couple of really simple things we could do together right now that can help them if they're watching. One is, as I mentioned, stress squeezes in the body. We're constantly being squeezed. And so I like to just kind of exaggerate the squeeze. Like, we know we're being squeezed. Well, then just keep squeezing in, like shrug your shoulders and make fists, and you might even notice some trembling starts to happen. Like, literally squeeze your glute muscles, squeeze all your leg muscles and tighten everything up, and just squeeze, hold it for maybe 10 or 15 seconds, and then just kind of release it and wiggle and wobble your body out a little bit. It feels like unloosening, a tight belt buckle. When you when you're just like, oh, I can't wait to take this belt off. We undo that belt, we're like, oh, finally, relief. So if you exaggerate the squeeze and squeeze in and hold it for 10 or 15 seconds, and then take a nice exhale, big sigh, and let everything go, it really will start to help the body know how to have this rhythm of contract, release, instead of just contraction. That's where we get stuck. So help the body open up by just exaggerating the squeeze and letting that go. Another really fun, easy thing to do would be just kind of rub your hands together, shake your hands out, make some muscles with your biceps, get some real tension going in your arms, and then just use your hands and just push like you're pushing a boulder away from you. Push it out from the side of you, up overhead. And you really have to feel the tension in your arms in order to make this feel like it's doing something. Because if you're just kind of like floppy arms, you're gonna be like, this doesn't do anything. But if you've got the tension going and you're feeling like you're pushing a boulder away from you, you're really pushing, and pushing it below you, the side of you, above you, in front of you, back of you, everything, you'll start to notice that your body will take just a spontaneous, easy breath, because now I have more space around me. Again, stress squeezes us in and gives us such little bit of space. So we just push that space out, push, and we go, now I've got some room.
I like that. Then you can start seeing what's around you, what your body's saying, how you address it. I love that. So it sounds like this would also be great for actors, for musicians, for athletes, like anyone who's actually really doing lawyers, just something to really help them tune in as to who they are and what's going on in the moment, right? So I think that's incredible. In fact, I also know a lot of young adults and children who are on the spectrum or who have special needs of some sort. Would something like this really help them also?
Well, great question. Absolutely, it can help them, but even more so, it helps the parents and the caregivers, because in their own, broader perspective of what this child doesn't have or can't do, in their own frustration of that perception, in their own stress and fears of that perception, versus the child who may be having a tantrum or not developing as fast as they want them to, or can't or won't. I help the individual caregiver, the parent, help themselves stay present and accepting of the situation. That way that they can get the best out of that child. That way it's not like they're putting an expectation on this child, which is kind of bouncing back and forth between the child and them in a real kind of like ping pong, unhealthy way, as opposed to just as a parent or caregiver, you just need to be the regulated source for that child. So helping them feel safe in their own bodies and accepting their child, and then being that safe space for their child to regulate through. You can't, there's a saying that says, chaos just breeds more chaos. You have to be that regulated thing that steps in amidst the chaos. So if your child is having a tantrum of some kind or isn't having the behavior that you want, you need to be regulated, because they will regulate through you, just even nervous system to nervous system. And the more you're doing these kinds of tapping techniques around them, they're going to start like monkey see, monkey do. They're going to go, oh, what's this? I want to do that too. And you tell them, hey, tap along, let's do this. You can tap along, looks like a monkey, likes to start doing this stuff. And that will certainly help them, sure.
And I would think it shifts the overall energy in the home too, which helps everyone, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, I think this is incredible. I'm so glad I found you, because all this information is so interesting, because I think people want to do something, but they're not sure what to do, or they're not sure how to make a difference. I know like another friend of mine, she's been trying to lose weight for the longest time. And so she'll, do these crazy fads or do fasting, but she's not going into the core of who she is. And that's so hard to tell somebody, but instead she'll spend all this money on diet plans or, a trainer or whatever. But when it just goes to turning inside, and I know it's hard sometimes say, okay, how do I start looking inside? How do I really do this? Because it's so much easier to say, I'll join a gym, or I'll pay someone to help me work out, instead of taking that leap of faith and say, okay, I have some cobwebs to clear out.
Most people don't want to dive into the deep end of the pool because they don't know how to swim. They don't know how long they're going to be there. They don't trust themselves to float, to doggy paddle. And so they don't realize that they can just start off at the shallow end of the pool and just learn there and build trust from that point. People just think like, I just don't want to do the big heavy lifting, like diving into the deep end. So I'll just keep putting Band-Aids on, and I'll just keep coping, or I'll just keep like using excuses of all these things that aren't going to work for me, to avoid going into that place of their own personal wisdom. And one thing I tell everybody, if you've crossed my path, then you are on a quest for your most clear authenticity, because the value system of the currency of the future, the value system of the future is authenticity. We all want to know where we stand with everybody else. Like, where do I stand with you? Okay, I don't like you, doesn't matter, but thank you for letting me know who you are. That way I can very clearly know that like you're out kind of thing, and vice versa. We're coming out of times where we are detaching from old systems, belief systems, and attaching to external organizations to tell us what our value is. And we're clearing ourselves off of that, and we're coming into our own personal value system. We're trying to figure out how to unravel the mess that had us betraying ourselves to begin with. And then who are we? Who do we want to be? How do we express that version of ourselves? And then how do we then share that version with ourselves as a service to the world? Because people, we all fit together like a big human puzzle, everybody having their part, no less, no more than anybody else. And as soon as we come into alignment with ourself and our value, and we can really grip onto it then and feel comfortable with it, we can keep sharing it with the world. And then people will recognize that, oh, I need Sophia's help. I need Suzanne's help, because this is what they offer. And that's what I need.
I love that, to really become aware and mindful and live your truth, know who you are, and claim it.
And then share it with the world as a service.
Oh, Suzanne, I'm so excited. I love that you offer this with such grace and such presence. And it's just so nice to see that. And there's, you're being very authentic in who you are, and you're able to be of service. And we all need to do that.
Yes.
And then just be in that place of being. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay. First of all, I love your website, and thank you, for all the things that you offer on it too. And I really hope people go to your website, transformconnections.com, and people can reach out to you there. And I know so many writers I would love to connect you with this person who does different workshops for writers too, because I think that would be a great resource for his group of writers.
Wonderful. Yeah. I do a de-stress and get focused workshop for writers, just to give them some tools to help them be more authentic and embodied in the moment. And then I also more, emotional mining kind of workshops, program called My Worldview, where I kind of go and take a look at, what are the top 1 or 2 unresolved life moments that may be in the way of getting them to write these deeply connected storylines that are really going to hook their audience. I mean, it is their wound, it is their flaw, it is their own issue that is going to be what they write about in their character. And they have had to do the work in order to have that transformational moment for that character and carry the audience home to the place of relief. But if they haven't done it, then it's just a bunch of ideas, and nothing ever gets really written, because they haven't done the work to emotionally transform themselves, much less write about the transformation. That's why they're kind of like, I'm in the middle of a muddy, soupy mess swamp. What do I do? And I haven't done the work to get myself out of here. And they go, well, just put that story away. And they just keep writing the same story, even though it is 100 different stories. It's always just them. So I do different types of workshops.
I like that, to go deep. And I was just wondering how wonderful it'd be if everyone took the time to really figure out who they are, and how that could really transform the entire planet. To just really live in this truth, in this moment of authenticity, and be able to relate to each other on a very authentic, still being kind and compassionate and empathetic without all, but I just think
right now we just walk around wearing so many masks, and so does everybody else, and we just don't know who to believe or what to believe. And it's like, were they truthful? Were they not truthful? And people are really good at acting, wearing masks in the world. And, there's no better feeling than to go like, oh, I really didn't like that person, but hey, you know what? I'm just so glad they told me who they were, and so I can go, thank you. Like, I respect the fact that you had a strong position in who you were, and I don't believe in that, and that's okay. And so now we know we're on different sides, as opposed to playing some game of trying to be nice and then really just never really having that deep, meaningful connection with people. We can just go, not you, thank you. Next, who's next for me to take a look at, I think people want to know where they stand, first and foremost with themselves, offer that very clear signal out to the world. This is who I am. This is what I believe in. This is how I do it. And other people will start to kind of be attracted to that person, like their beacon, attracting these people. And then, for people that don't match, it's a quick no. And then they're off. Imagine if I teach another class called Get Pitch Ready. To help screenwriters to be able to emotionally get ready to being able to be that kind of what I call the lion. And, a lion is not going to be afraid of anything, be that lion in that confidence when you're sharing about your script. Know why you wrote it, what your inspiration was, what the story is. Be the story as you're experiencing it, and as you're sharing about it and experiencing it. You really have to be that. You can't be just reading from a piece of paper what you wrote. No, nobody wants that. They want you. This story's been written 100 different times in different character names. No story is 100% original. I mean, if you have the idea, it's out there written 100 different ways. But yours is going to be what hooks them if you share, with your authenticity, and they're going to really feel that emotion through you. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening right now about, emotional character development. It's always been about emotions of character. It's always been us being grabbed at our wound, grabbed at our deepest fear, at our stress and our worry, and go, oh my God, you really got me. What are we going to do now? And the writer says, don't worry. I'm going to take us home now. I'm going to show you how to get there. And they're going to go, oh, that's why we go on this emotional journey when we watch shows, right? When we watch film.
So, Well, I know from experience, pitching is terrifying, because you feel like you're being judged, like before you even speak, having done it a few times myself. So for you to really teach someone to get over that, I mean, I want to take that class. What do you, do you use some of your techniques that you use for transform connections, or is it something?
Oh yeah, it's everything that I use is, I mean, all the same, whether it's transform connections and doing trauma healing, chronic stress and trauma healing, or if it's with Screen Right Now and helping screenwriters become more authentic and embodied. Yes, it's using the same, same techniques. I call it neuro energy tapping because I'm kind of a neuroscience geek. I really want to help the body always feel safe and help process what may be keeping it trapped in fear or anger or anxiety. Tapping, neuro-linguistic programming, some light hypnosis, but none of that even matters. It's just I have a course out there. Just take it. It's on YouTube. It's free. It's an hour. You can watch it. Yeah, it was hosted by the ISA last year, and so anybody can take it and watch it and really help them become very aligned with who they are, why they wrote the story, what their inspirational moment was, what they've done in their own lives to be a part of this story. And that way they can really be authentically expressing that in the moment. And I really believe that you will attract the right audience to pitch to when you are just humming in your own vibration about just the clarity of the authenticity of the script. You really have to be it. And then when someone says, oh, well, I have someone for you to read it to, you're like, let me ask my body. No, they're a horror and I write rom-com. No, thanks, and not saying yes to everybody, because believe me, you don't want feedback from somebody who maybe is like a horror film person and you're a rom-com writer. And what are they going to say about it? And then you're going to take it so personal, but they're a successful horror person. No, you have to make sure that your audience is the right audience for you. And there is no such thing as rejection. I call it redirection. It's just redirection back to you getting clear about who you are and how you align with your script to make sure that the audience that you're pitching to is the right audience. And then making sure you've done your homework, like, who is my audience? What kind of work have they done? Why would they be interested? What's a little tidbit about their life that I can mention to them as I'm pitching to them, really get them deep into their happy emotions with me, It's a lot more than just having written the script and having like the courage to get out in front of it. It's a little bit more.
Well, what's so exciting about this, it sounds like this is something you can take into real life. Just having your clear intentions, knowing who you are, knowing what you want, set your focus on, your chosen group or a person, or like whether you want to get a new job or you want to try a new business, really doing the homework. Knowing what your boundaries are. So it sounds like, whatever you can learn from that, you can apply to other things as well in your life.
Like I said, I never really set out to work with people in TV and film. I'd always been working with people with chronic stress or trauma and helping them kind of overcome that and reconnect with their bodies and their lives, their confidence and their worthiness. And that just kind of parlayed into my working with people who happen to be writers and then screenwriters and showrunners who I was doing the same exact work with. And, it's, Transform Connections is my business. A little part of it is also Screen Right Now because I work with that, niche of people. And it's always so special again, because I love to help them be able to write their story, from a place of peace and wisdom and not be so triggered that they don't get the story out. They all tell me the same thing. I have 100 stories in me. I just can't finish them. I need help, or I really have to finish this one because now I have a deadline and I don't know what to do because I'm backed into a corner. It's the same work, whether it's, if you're a chronic stress trauma person that I work with, or if you're a writer who's tripping over yourself, you just haven't done that deep emotional clearing work too. And even the best writing coaches, like one of my favorite out there is Jen Grisante, and she talks about, writing from your wound. But a lot of people don't feel safe in their wounds. They haven't processed their wounds to a place of peace and wisdom to be able to write from them. So if you're being given that guidance to write your characters with deep emotional, wisdom, that means you have to have done that work yourself. And I say, hey, you know what? Circumnavigate the therapist. Let's just get right to the clearing work. Let's just get there and process it to a place of peace and wisdom. We can do that fairly quickly. People are always amazed, like, how, I can't believe that was so fast. I can't believe it. Now I'm writing again. Wow, this is just within maybe 1 hour of a session, or maybe a week or two of working together. And it's not like you have to spend years and years and years in therapy. It really is so much faster because we're using the body, and the body is so much faster than the mental mechanics of our thinking mind.
That is so, I think I would want to take a class just to have that experience. And it's like, how deep can you go? I mean, I would love to have that experience, because I know as a writer myself, there are times when I find that block, and I'm like, I will distract myself with so many other things, and then when I will let time go by and then go back to it, but then I won't be in that same momentum and that same depth. So
Right.
I'd be really curious to have that experience to see what that block is that is preventing me to really dive in deeper. So
How we find it is whatever is going on with you in your life right here and now. It might be a current worldly distraction, pandemic. It could be something else going on in your personal life. It could be like, oh, I just never resolved this divorce I had, or I've never had this, relationship I wanted to have, whatever it might be. We go to that pain, and then we begin to process it through using tapping and some other techniques. And that way you can sit with it with a place of peace and wisdom. And then you can write about it. Then it will no longer be this trigger of, oh, I haven't done that. How do I, I can't go into the swampy mess of my own emotions by myself. So it's all about processing it through the body. And then next thing you know, I always think about it in terms of the brain. The reptilian brain is on our brain stem. That's what's responsible for our automatic responses of fight, flight, freeze. We are wired and genetically coded to survive at all costs, just like the flower leans toward the sun. Our body will do whatever it takes to keep us alive, even if it means unhealthy coping strategies. It's like, hey, but you're alive. Hey, you're not dead, right? You're still living. And we're like, yes, but I don't like this. It's like, that's not my job. My job is to keep you alive. And then you've got this part of the brain called the limbic system, which is the middle part of the brain. Is the emotional center. So when the body is overwhelmed, dealing with fight, flight, or freeze, the emotional center gets triggered, and it says, oh God, anything ranging from anger, anxiety, to despair, hopelessness. And we kind of just keep swimming in that big range. And we need tools to be able to regulate that. And then the thinking mind, which is the top of our head, our cortex layer. When our body's overwhelmed and our emotions overwhelmed, we just can't think clearly. I mean, how many times have you been like, oh, I have to make a decision, but I'm really stressed and I have to just decide right now, okay, I'll just make a decision. And you say to yourself, not going to be good long term, but I had to just do something. Why isn't it that we have the clarity of mind when we're stressed? First, because our body's overwhelmed. Second is because our emotions aren't regulated. And so our thinking mind goes offline. This is why we have mental confusion and brain fog that we call procrastination, imagination block. Yes, we are blocked because our body's so overwhelmed. We don't feel it because we're so disconnected from our body, that our body is like having like the gas pedal to the floor going 100 miles an hour, even though we may be sitting there very calmly. It's revving up and revving up, and we need to do things to help it regulate and calm down. That will then settle down that emotional center in our brain. Next thing you know, the superhighway opens up right to the imaginative mind, and then the creativity starts to flow, and we can start to write again.
Right. Or in other cases, you could be nice and calm with whatever situation you're dealing with other people, as opposed to freaking out, screaming, yelling, getting everyone.
Two chaotic people cannot solve any problems. Somebody has to be regulated. Somebody has to be the peace. Even if they're just in the presence of somebody with peace, it's going to help their nervous system be able to relax more and calm down more.
This would be so great if it was taught in schools, if elementary schools, highs, high schools, even college, teach them when they're young. So, a child knows, okay, I can do this, be calm, relate to someone as opposed to at someone. So I think this is just so valuable.
Yeah, I think that, I think self-regulation tools are part of our future. Just like you might go to a yoga class now or to go to a gym class. I mean, not everybody did that 20, 30 years ago, except for like those guys that went to Gold's Gym to lift heavy weights. Now everybody goes to the gym. Nobody went to an acupuncture or chiropractor 30 years ago. Now everybody goes. I think that self-regulation techniques are going to be part of just our life because we need tools, to be able to, it's survival of the fittest, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, even. We need tools and skills. We just can't wing it through life anymore. Anybody who's like, oh yeah, I don't need that, I got that. Yeah, really? You don't got that. You don't got that. You're living kind of hard and fast, like gripping on to life in a way that's probably creating a lot of resistance in your body. And these are the people that manifest pain and disease physically, emotionally, and mentally because they're not having that resilience.
I just think it's ironic, though, that a lot of these tools have been around for thousands of years, like acupuncture, and even tapping's been around for a very long time, hasn't it?
Yeah, since the 80s and 90s.
So I'm glad people are, starting to use it and become more accepting of it as opposed to it being like weird or woo-woo.
Well, we live in such an image-focused society that, we don't want to be looking different. Because if we look different and we do something different, then we can be ostracized from the group. And as humans, as mammals, as humans, survival depends upon our being able to stay connected, safely and securely connected. And if the group that we belong to starts seeing that we do weird, different stuff, they're going to be like, yeah, we'll start backing away slowly. They'll start kind of leaving your life. And we can't live in isolation. We die in isolation. We need other people. And so we just haven't allowed ourselves to do these things because of what it looks like. And so in the evolution of our thinking mind, it's like left the body, told everybody that it can solve all world's problems, but yet the body sits here and keeps the score, right? There's a book by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk called The Body Keeps the Score. So no matter what we think in our mind, our body really shows us what's really happening. And so, yeah, the thinking mind has solved a lot of problems, but we really need to bring the thinking mind back on the head, kind of back on the body, start to integrate these two. That way they can start to work together, mind and body.
Well, I agree with you that your body holds on to stuff. How do you start figuring out what it is? Like, say you're having chronic pain in your back or, chronic knee problems, or you didn't physically hurt yourself. How do you start finding out what that root is? Is that part of the layers?
Sometimes it surfaces for you and sometimes it doesn't. But the whole point is being willing to go into it and help it process. And if it wants to share with you, whether it's through a real story of something happened or a metaphor of a story of something that happened, or maybe no story, because maybe just the process is of unwinding it and relieving it is enough. The subconscious mind is going to protect you. It's not going to let you do something that's going to hurt yourself physically, emotionally, or mentally. It just won't. And it's not here to hurt you anymore. It really just wants to help you through it. So you might not find out what the root is, but you probably can get a lot of relief in not having the same experience that you keep tripping over. If you just kind of deal with, where are we at right now? This is my symptom. This is what it looks like. It sounds like, it feels like. This is who's involved with it. Take all of that detail and start to process it through your body. Well, that's just a grown-up version of something that happened a long time ago. When was the first time you felt that way? But we don't need to go and dig and find out what that is. We don't even need to kind of go, let's just think what that could be. Because then we start to open up Pandora's box and stuff that might not be bothering us from the past. All of a sudden we start stirring it up and we're like, no, don't do that, So don't go digging for the root. It's going to be there. And certainly when we're doing these techniques together, we're getting at the root, but we might not know what it is. What we're really looking for is the relief.
Right.
We want the relief. And the subconscious will share with us what it is that we're going to be okay with knowing, whether it's the reality, a metaphor, if it's just the present day experience of it. We get what we need.
I like that. It goes back to all being in alignment, in connection with self, knowing who you are. I think what you offer is very valuable. I'm very excited. I'm going to sign up for one of your sessions just because I want to have that experience and just kind of see what's preventing me from doing something in one of my scripts. I'd be very curious to know what that is. without, going off in my own little dialogue about, oh, well, and just really try to figure that out. I'd be really, really curious and interested to see what that would be like.
Yeah.
Well,
Wonderful. We always start with the current symptom. I can't write, blank page syndrome. Inner critic's got me. Can't deal with the pressure. I haven't been able to write in 2 weeks. Don't know if this character should be a boy or girl. I've got 20 characters in my story. Maybe it's just 3, but they all have multiple personality disorder. I don't know what's going on. Lots of different symptoms. I don't feel confident enough to pitch. I don't know how to even submit into a festival. I've been in a writer's room 10 times over, and now all of a sudden I'm changing genres, and I feel like I'm a newbie again. I don't know what to do.
There's just so much.
So many symptoms. All one problem is that we need to go into the body, help the body safely process and regulate, give you some tools and skills in the moment, and then go and just help you move through what is really going on. That way we kind of unstuck those frozen places, those places that are still in fight, flight, and bring them to a place of peace and wisdom.
Well, I think right now, universally, it's time to do that for everyone. It's time to get to a place of peace and wisdom, and everyone just needs to kind of become very aware and mindful of what their own stuff is.
Yes, but on the same hand, everybody has a right to dysfunction. Not everybody is ready to do the work. Maybe people don't have the right support around them to carry them if they get triggered. Maybe they don't know how to trust themselves. Maybe they're terrified of the sensation that they've buried. And a lot of people are not willing to do it. And these are the people that, in their resistance of their own expansion, could potentially, have a lot of pain and disease, physically, emotionally, and mentally, and still they're entitled to do that. But if you are listening to this and you've come this far and listening to our conversation today, and you're just like, you know what, I got to go for genuine aliveness or bust, I'm like, that's kind of what I do with my clients is they come to me and they're just like, I tried everything else. I need the thing that works. And so, okay, let's roll up our sleeves. Let's get into your body and let's start moving some stuff.
Okay, that's wonderful. Let's do it. Let's do it. Suzanne Gundersen, thank you so very much for talking with me today. I greatly appreciate it. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I will be reaching out to you shortly because I want to do it. I'm ready to take that leap and figure out, what exactly is going on. So thank you very much, Suzanne.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Transformconnections.com, right?
Yes. And also screenwritenow.com for the screenwriters.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna check that out too. And I'm gonna hook you up with my friend who has a group of writer students. I think you'd be wonderful for them as well. So thank you so very much for your time.
Fantastic. Thank you. Take care.
Mwah. All right.
Bye.